morning. My name is Ashley Walker, the director of Precious Ones Learning Center, which is our preschool here at Beaver Creek Christian Church. Well, welcome to BCC. We are glad you're here. First things first is making sure that you come and connect with us. We would love to know who all is here and how we can reach out to you. You can do two different things. One, scan the QR code here on the screen, which will take you to an online form to connect with us. Or you can grab a Connect card from the seat in front of you, fill it out with whatever you want to, and drop it in the blue boxes in the back. If you're new here with us today, we also have a gift for you at our information center. So drop off your Connect card there and get a free mug, some information, and a few other little trinkets that we have for you. Now, we only have a couple of announcements for you this morning, so I want to take just a moment and tell you a little bit about Precious Ones Learning Center. POLC is BCC's faith-based preschool and child care center. Part of being a faith-based center means that we love to take advantage of the time that we have here with the kids to share the love of Jesus with them. Knowing that this could be their first and only exposure to Him, we like to make sure and plan fun and interactive activities to help foster a healthy relationship with Jesus. We are open Monday through Friday and have classrooms for toddlers all the way through after-school program for 5th graders. We have an amazing staff of caring and loving teachers and some of the coolest kids around. I have been part of POLC for just over 11 years as a teacher, and I've been the director here for the past 2 years. Even more than that, I started out as a student here myself. After attending POLC, I knew that it was my dream, and so I've been here ever since. We are currently serving 167 students in the Beaver Creek community with 13 fantastic teachers. I am always happy to answer any questions you have regarding our preschool program, and we're always looking for familiar faces to come in and help volunteer. Now, let's get to our announcements this morning. The Global 6K for Water is in just 2 weeks, and we are so close to meeting our goal. We have already broken our previous records, but if you or someone you know still has not registered, then follow the link on the front of the app or on the front of our website. And remember, many more people will walk this event than run it. So don't feel like you have to be an avid runner to participate. You can walk, jog, skip, or hop, however you best move with your feet, and you can do it at whatever pace you want. Adults and kids alike can run, walk, or roll their way along our route. Every registration means one more child gets life-changing, life-giving clean water. So let's continue to raise money so that we can make clean water more accessible. For our June City Serve, we are going to be volunteering at the Creek Classic Soccer Tournament. We will be working concessions and the grill so that we can serve hundreds of kids and their families. Sign-ups are available both on the website and app, so make sure you head over and start signing up. The Creek Classic is June 3rd and 4th, so we have tons of slots to fill for both days. Invite a friend to serve with you and plan to come and have a lot of fun. Well, that's all I have for you this morning. Thank you for listening to the announcements this morning, and don't forget about all the ways that we have to give. You can give on the app, through our website, or you can drop cash or checks in the blue boxes in the back. Now, let's get to worshiping this morning.
Well, hello, good morning, and welcome to Beaver Creek Christian Church. We're so very excited to be able to come together to celebrate our awesome God and King. And I don't know why or what is happening, but it seems like are we leaving space right here in the middle for the Holy Ghost, perhaps? So I know as we're having some more people come in, don't feel like you have to sit super far away from somebody sitting next to you, even if you do or don't know them. So feel free to push closer into the middle. We actually last night hosted one of the Girl Scout troops and several actual troops during their they had a bridge, everything. They were coming up and people were graduating. It was actually very incredible. So that's why we're set up a little differently, but we liked the intimate, kind of closer feel. So as people start to come in and you see somebody looking for a seat, feel free to say, hey, would you like to sit next to me? And if you're at home on our live stream and somebody walks into your house, don't be alarmed. Invite them to come sit on your couch and maybe talk about Jesus. That would be fun, right? So if you are here, physically with us here in Beaver Creek on Shakertown Road, I invite you to stand, right now. Go ahead and stand up and maybe say hi to somebody that you do not know, you did not come with. Shake their hand, learn something interesting and fun about them as we start worship this morning, honoring our awesome God and King.
is your faithfulness to me. Great is your faithfulness to me. From the rising sun to the setting same, I will praise your name. And great is your faithfulness to me. God from age to age, though the earth may pass away, your love remains the same. Your history can prove there's nothing you can't do. You're faithful and true. Though the storms may come and the winds may blow, I'll remain steadfast and let my heart learn when you speak a word, it will come to pass. Great is your faithfulness to me. Great is your faithfulness to me. From the rising sun to the setting same, I will praise your name. Great is your faithfulness to me. I put my faith in Jesus, my anchor to the ground, my hope and firm foundation. He'll never let me down. I put my faith in Jesus, my anchor to the ground, my hope and firm foundation. He'll never let me down. I put my faith in Jesus, my anchor to the ground, my hope and firm foundation. He'll never let me down. He'll never let me down. Great is your faithfulness to me. Great is your faithfulness to me. From the rising sun to the setting same, I will praise your name. Great is your faithfulness to me. God of creation, there at the start, before the beginning of time. With no point of reference, you spoke to the dark and fleshed out the wonder of life.
as you speak, 100 billion galaxies are born. In the vapor of your breath, the planets form. If the stars were made to worship, so will I. I can see your heart in everything you made. Every burning star a signal fire of grace. And creation sings your praises, so will I. God of your promise, you don't speak in vain, no syllable empty or void. For once you have spoken, all nature and science follow the sound of your voice. And as you speak, 100 billion creatures catch your breath, evolving in pursuit of what you said. And it all reveals your nature, so will I can see your heart in everything you say. Every painted sky, a canvas of your grace. If creation still obeys you, so will I.
Can you hear me? There we go. Good morning. Please have a seat. Intentional prayer time coming up here. This week, we're heading into Teacher Appreciation Week. And as Ashley highlighted on the announcements, Precious One Learning Center is an anchor point for Beaver Creek Christian Church. The last couple of weeks, I've had an opportunity. People asked me about it. It came up in conversation. And I just want to continue to highlight the beauty that is the relationship of Precious One Learning Center and Beaver Creek Christian Church. A number of families, whether they're teachers or whether they're just customers, if you will, and they have this relationship on a place where the kids grow and where love grows. And it's one of our phrases. It's written on the stone on the front door. It is a beautiful aspect of the relationship here, where in a world that is so divided and broken, kids and families have a connection point. They're reminded of God and that God loves them. There's a chapel service that happens during the week. Many of the teachers are part of the community here. And it's something that we hold dear and we love. And if you don't know about it, I'd ask you to plug in. And in relationship to that, I'd like to, there's a number of people who are attendees here who are teachers. If you're one of those, could you stand quickly? I'll let you sit down before we pray. So Mary's in the back. And while you're looking at them, also look in the back. There's a blackboard or a black poster board there. Those hearts represent teachers. The stars on the table are students that attend. And I'd like each of you to go back at the end of the service and grab one of those stars and pray for those kids this week. Pray for those, for the classrooms they in. Pray for love to grow in their heart. All right, teachers, thank you. See, let's go to in a community prayer here for a minute. I'll give you a minute to raise up your individual prayers, and then I'll close us out. Heavenly Father, many times your Son instructed to let the children come to him. The relationship between the children, between ones who are just learning the ways of the world, that they might be welcomed, they might be comforted, they might be loved in your arms. God, we're so thankful for Precious Ones Learning Center and for the teachers who work so hard to be a kind face, to be a smile, to be a person of grace as those kids bump into each other and bump into the world. God, thanks for the families that are here. Thanks for the opportunity that they might come to the church and find it a place of comfort and peace. And that we as a larger community, that we might love on them in ways that stand out, that remind them of the love you give to us. Father, help these teachers to find solutions to the chaos of the classroom. Help them find tenderness in their words to everyone they meet. In your Son's precious name we pray.
Stars were made to worship, so will I. If the mountains bow in reverence, so will I. If the oceans roar your greatness, so will I. If for everything exists to lift you high, so will I. The wind goes where you send it, so will I. If the rocks cry out in silence, so will I. If the sum of all our praises still falls short, then we'll sing again 100 billion times. On a hill you created, the light of the world, abandoned in darkness to die. And as you speak, 100 billion failures disappear. Where you lost your life so I could find it here. If you left the grave behind you, so will I can see your heart and everything you've done. Every part designed a work of art called love. If you gladly chose surrender, so will I can see your heart a billion different ways. Every precious one, a child you died to save. If you gave your life to love them, so will I. Like you would 100 billion times. But what measure could amount to your desire? You're the one who never leaves the one behind. Amen.
been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, I will sing of the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire in the darkest nights. You are close like no other. I've known you as a father. I've known you as a friend. And I have lived in the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me.
Now we're going to enjoy the centerpiece of our service, celebrating the Lord's Supper. Who watched the King's coronation yesterday? You get a show of hands. Anybody in here? Like 4 people were up with me. Man, this is going to be a rough story for you then. Okay. For those of you who might have seen it, or I'd encourage you to go back and look at it, because in the middle of that ceremony, the Lord's Supper was held. And it stood out to me how divisive our world leaders and politics and all those things that are government related are in our world today, certainly in America, right? Different country, different story, different style of government. But what stood out to me was Philippians. And in Philippians 1, Paul is engaging this community he knows, and he's talking to them about this preaching of Christ out of envy or rivalry or selfish ambition. And there's people that get upset about that. But what Paul says is what does it matter? The important thing that in every way, whether from false motives or true, Christ is preached. And I was just taken aback as many of the world, apparently not this room, but many of the world were watching as a bishop led his community in communion, in the Lord's Supper, and Christ was preached. It was a beautiful sight. The Lord's Supper is a reminder and a remembrance that Jesus told his disciples. He gathered with them in a Passover meal. He gathered with them in this time of ceremony and celebration and expectation for them of not knowing what was going to happen. The Messiah was there. They were confident in that, but they had no idea what he had in store for them. But he gave them clear instructions. do this in remembrance of me. And that's what we do today in celebration. The bread, which represents his body, which was broken for us. The cup and the juice, which represents his blood, which was shed for us. And those elements change the relationship for us and allow us to enter into this beauty, into this peace that is Christ and his salvation for us. So I invite all of you. All are welcome to the Lord's Supper at Beaver Creek Christian Church. There are tables, 2 in the front and 2 in the back. When you're ready, come forward, take the elements. In everything, Christ is preached. Amen.
The goodness of God. Yeah. All my life you have been faithful.
Wish you'd taken the elevator. Does anybody else feel like they need to take a sip of water after watching that? It's like a minute and a half, and I'm already like dabbing sweat off my forehead. I just need to scan the room here for a second. Just be honest, or don't. Who feels like, now again, 3,333 steps in 1 hour? In case you're cranking the math in your head, that's barely a second a little over a second per step for an hour straight. Anybody feel like, you know what, I'm in good shape, I can pull this off? Anybody? Adam's got it. Ted feels like he's got it. He's got it. Okay. It's all mental, right? Except for the physical part. All right. Who feels like, okay, I could do half. I could do like 1,600 or so in about an hour. Yeah? Okay. Who's with me in like 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 steps in? You're like, what am I doing? Anybody? Who's feeling it? Who's feeling it? Okay, we're together on that one. What do you think? At what point do you think your body is going to start to complain? Like your joints are aching, your muscles are seizing up. When do you think your body is going to break out into an argument with your brain? Like, what did you do to us? Like, at what point in that race is that going to happen? My internal argument would not be so internal. It would be very external and loud. I'd be yelling at myself as I'm going, John, what were you thinking? 3,333 steps? What are you, delusional? And just needless to say, my fellow racers would be looking at me very strange because I'd be yelling at myself as I'm trying to go up these stairs, huffing and puffing. Seriously, though, what a challenge. Uphill. A long journey in the same direction. What would it take to compete in a journey like that? What would it take to complete a journey like that? Endurance, perseverance, determination, direction. And this is the question we find ourselves as we stop on our journey through Philippians. We're looking at the second half of chapter 2, starting in verse 12. And as it pops up on the screen, you'll see immediately that we run into a not. Now, I don't mean not as in the word N-O-T. Literally, as it pops up here, you'll see the word therefore. Therefore is what I like to call a knot, K-N-O-T. It ties two pieces together and makes them into one. And so to refer before going on, you have to refer back to the piece before. And so Ted did a phenomenal job last week, beautiful job laying out the beginning part of chapter 2, verses 1 through 11. There's just two words that I want us to hold on to today that he kind of laid out, and one of them is humility. Humility, as we look back and we see in Philippians 2, 1 through 11, it says this: be humble, thinking of others as better than yourselves. Don't look out only for your own interests, but take an interest in others too. You must have the same attitude as Jesus Christ. Ted was saying, put on Jesus. It's this mindset. It's this conscious choice to step into something and to put it on. Put on this mindset of humility. How you see yourself, how you see each other. The other word is unity. And in verse 2, we see, he says, make me truly happy by agreeing wholeheartedly with each other, loving one another, and working together with one mind and purpose. A mindset of humility and a goal, a purpose-driven goal for unity. How I see myself, how I see others, and how we work together. Now we come back to our not, our therefore in verse 12. How does this tie together? It says, therefore, my dear friends. Now, this is Paul. He's leaning in. This is very pastoral. I need you to get this tone. It's loving. It's caring. This is not authoritarian. This is not directive. This is leaning in and sitting down and scooting to the edge of his seat and saying, guys, come close. I want to share this with you. Dear friends, as you have always obeyed, not only in my presence, but much more in my absence, continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God who works in you to will and to act in order to fulfill his good purpose. Do you hear that tone? That's caring. That's loving. Now, if you're a leader, if you're a teacher, if you're a manager, if you're a husband or wife, you're a grandparent, if you're a person who interacts with another person, do we cover everybody now? Look at how he lays these two verses together. It's phenomenal. And how we can interact with each other. He starts by saying, I commend you. I praise you from where you've been. And look, well done. And then he charges or he challenges them to continue. Keep going. And then he brings out comfort and says, you're not doing it alone. You're not alone in this. God's with you in this journey. God's working in you and through you. He commends them, well done. He charges them, keep going. And he comforts them, you're not alone. The key word in these two verses here that I see that I want us to look at is the word continue. To keep going. Continue what? Continue to work out your salvation. Now hear me, this is not work for your salvation. This is not if I can deserve it, if I can earn it, if I'm better good than bad. This is not that. This is living out your faith life, living out your journey as God molds you and chisels you. Let me put it this way. Let's look at the New Living for a second. Maybe this will make a little clarity. Work hard to show the results of your salvation, obeying God with deep reverence and fear. For God is working in you, giving you the desire and the power to do what pleases him. Do you see the connection between our working out our salvation, living out that obedient life, and God working in us? So I had a mentor who was a senior leader at a church I was at a number of years ago, who this is one of his favorite passages, Philippians 2, 12 to 13. And he would share it often and refer to it. And the picture he would draw, the way he would lay out his common saying was this: pray as though it's all up to God. Work as though it's all up to you. Did you get that relationship? Now, I don't want red flags to go off. I don't want sirens to go off. God is sovereign. God is in control. We need to lean fully in on our dependence of him. But there's this expectation that he gave us this freedom to choose on our next step. We get to choose on living out this faith or not. But there's this relationship between us working out our salvation, living out an obedient life in this daily faith walk, and God chipping away at us, supplying us with this grace-filled energy to keep going. To keep going. I love it. Eugene Peterson wrote this book years and years ago. And I love the title. He stole it from somebody else. This is a quote, but it's beautiful. He acknowledges it. He didn't just steal it. I guess I shouldn't say that. A long obedience in the same direction. A long obedience in the same direction. Going up the stairs, this long journey requires perseverance. So we have this continue, keep going charge that Paul lays out. But then he uncovers the how. And here's the thing, of all the practical applications that I feel like could have been chosen, the ones that he lays out kind of knock me back every time I read it. Surprise me every time. But before we get there, I need to uncover kind of where we've been a little bit and where we're going still in Philippians. Here's what we know. Paul is writing this letter to this church in Philippi. He's writing this letter. He's corresponding. He's been with them before. He loves them. He can't be with them right now, but he sends them this letter. And he knows that right now they're feeling external pressure from outside their church community. They're also feeling internal pressure from the inside. Not only that, the man who is penning or dictating this letter is in prison. He's in prison for sharing the good news of Jesus. He's in prison this time with the impending execution hanging above his head. This is the mood. This is the tone in which he writes this to them. This is the tone that he charges the church of Philippi with this principle, this application of working out your salvation by doing everything without complaining and arguing, so that no one can criticize you. Live clean, innocent lives as children of God, shining like bright stars in a world full of crooked and perverse people, a dark world. Hold firmly to the word of life. Then on the day of Christ's return, I will be proud that I did not run the race in vain and that my work was not useless. But I will rejoice even if I lose my life, pouring it out like a liquid offering to God, just like your faithful service is an offering to God. And I want all of you to share that joy. Yes, you should rejoice, and I will share your joy. So here's a person imprisoned with execution orders hanging above his head at any moment, writing to a community that is feeling external and internal pressure from every direction. He writes, do everything without complaining or arguing. Does that surprise you? Does that surprise you that God inspires Paul to write this application to working out your salvation, to living out this life, to persevering this journey? Of anything God could pick, he says, do not complain. In everything, do not complain and do not argue. How long up the journey of stairs did you envision your muscles starting to ache? How long before you started to second guess? I was 25 stairs in. So the groans of pain. Maybe it was the frustration of the people around you. You're going at a good pace, but the person in front of you is going slow. Or, and more frustrating for me, the in-shape person who speeds past you, passes on the left, and goes running up the stairs. If this faith journey is a long obedience in the same direction, it kind of makes sense. The why they use complaining and arguing, that might be actually the most universal and constant temptation that we have in this journey as we take step after step. Frustration, fatigue, failure. Let me consider for a moment. Let's just look at complaining for a moment, if we can unpack it just a little bit. There's actually a ton written through the psychological world as well as neuroscience about complain brain, okay? And that's my own term. But did you know that actually complaining, they have found in numerous studies that it actually rewires your brain. Complaining can rewire your brain, and then it can affect your health. Now, when we're referring to complaining, let's just get it out there. It's expressing discontent or resentment, okay? And I hope we can all agree that at some point, each of us, probably maybe even today, have found maybe it was the rain outside, and we just found a reason to complain. They actually did studies that it is like average of 15 to 30 times each person will complain in a day for even the most random, small little thing. Yet, though, mostly we're just thinking in our minds, I'm just venting. I'm just getting my emotions out there. I'm just releasing my emotions. They're bottled up. Oh, I'm just doing this to make me feel better. But the ironic thing is, does complaining ever really make us feel better? Does hearing someone else complain make them feel better? No, that's actually the thing. Complaining not only messes with us, it messes with those who hear it. In Stanford, they did this study, a very extensive study, studied MRIs and all this, and they came to find out that complaining actually shrinks the hippocampus. Shrinks the center of memory and problem solving. And this study found that even just engaging in 30 minutes of complaining began to rewire the brain. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to geek out a little bit. I love neuroscience and then study of this kind of elements in the brain. And if you know this, you're great. And if you don't, and if you're really an expert, I'm not good at it. Okay, so just no judgment. All right. So you start having thoughts, and those thoughts start to travel from one synapse to the other, and it starts to, this whole constellation of them, and they start to, if you have a lot of thoughts this way, they start to grow together and build bridges, so it's faster, so you're thinking about it faster, and the pathways become closer and closer. And they have found that if the habit is to complain, or the habit is a negativity, that pathway becomes your dominant default. That becomes the bridge. They have a word for this in neuroscience, or a phrase for this in neuroscience, and it goes, synapses that fire together, wire together. Synapses that fire together, as you begin to build this bridge, they wire together. Now, here's the thing. It's a race in your brain. You have something before you, and it's a race. Am I going to think positively about this or negative? Am I going to complain, or am I going to rejoice about this? Whichever one is shorter often wins. Whichever pathway is shorter, that is the dominant default. What's fascinating in this study, I think it's fascinating, is then they began to study the people who were listening to the complaining. And our brains are wired. God created our brains to imagine others' experiences. So if someone's sharing anger or sadness, we want to know. We want to try to experience it. Our brain's trying to experience where they're at so we can empathize, so we can understand. And in this study, it found that the same mechanism was happening, that these pathways were getting closer in people who were listening to it too. Your words, my words, have an impact on other people's brains. This doesn't mean ditch your friends who are complaining, okay? Or who are going through a really hard time. What this should encourage us is to know that our words can actually impact others. More than just their mood. You can rewire somebody else's brain. I'm not saying manipulate it. Okay, that's weird. But we can have an impact. And complaining actually has an impact on my identity, who I am as I'm wiring my brain. Complaining has an impact on my relational influence with others. Complaining has an impact on other people's lives and their brains. Those are powerful words. The words that come out of your mouth. But let's not forget that Paul not only talked about complaining, he talked about arguing. And if we were to boil arguing down to a simplistic form, I'd say it's a lack of mutual empathetic understanding. Yes, the brains are on a smoke break. When empathy is not engaged, then people immediately revert to the self-protective mode and they become judgmental. And here's the thing, bad feelings from both sides, no happy ending. But here is how empathy is bypassed often. We all, universal, we all want to get to the bottom line. We all want to get to the solution of the conflict as soon as possible. And my suggestion, and this suggestion from these number of studies, is that may not be the best first step. Imagine you're feeling shortchanged. And you dare to say something about it. And you say, I don't think you're paying your fair share. I don't think you're doing your fair share. And then your partner immediately on the defensive begins to present their case of why there was no wrongdoing. You don't agree, they don't hear your counter argument, and pretty soon things escalate. That is, unless somebody decides to break it off. Either way, nothing is really decided. If this was a business organization, you might come up with a compromise, but it leaves both parties not feeling very good. What's missing is the understanding of the other person's motivations, likes, and dislikes. An understanding of why each of you are holding the position you hold. It's not unfamiliar. We all want to be understood, right? So here's the rule that's laid out for arguments. It says this: you are not allowed to say a word about any possible solution until you have a thorough understanding of the other person's feelings and you feel equally understood by them. Until then, you must keep working towards the understanding, not the solution. Now, here's the thing. That is a tough rule. That is unnatural, right? And if you can't, because there's times you can't achieve understanding. There's times it's not a good outcome. I just want you to hear me. I am not saying that you must agree on everything with everyone, okay? I am also not saying that you must abandon any conviction you have in order to have peace with everybody. But what if we approach disagreements in a loving, listening manner? What if instead of walking into a difficult interaction by saying, I must win, I must get my point across, I must persuade you, what if instead we entered into these difficult interactions with the mindset of, how can I understand you? What if, and even more importantly, how can I show and live out grace to you? A gift, the best gift I've ever received. Free love and acceptance that I can't earn and deserve, and I'm continually showered upon me. So in everything, do not complain, argue, grumble, fight. Everything. Job, politics, posts and responses online, in the car. That's for me personally. My wife's nodding. They can't hear me, but I'm convinced I'm a better driver than they are, and I'll yell at them. Church, in everything. Marriage, parenting, dealing with your parents, every life situation. What I love, though, is that Paul doesn't stop there with the how. So he's like, work out your salvation. Continue. Keep going. God's with you in this. He's working on you in this. And then here's the how. Strive in everything, to not argue, to not complain. Why? Why? Why do you work out and continually put on this mindset of humility? Why do you keep striving after this goal of unity? Because, and we saw this in the study, our words impact others. We get to be shining stars in a dark, dark world. I had the opportunity I hope this doesn't mess up the camera people too much. To go to Africa a number of years ago, to get a chance to go for a few weeks and do some pastoral training for some local pastors at some tribes in Africa. And the church I was on staff at the time had been there for long enough to build kind of a compound, fenced-in area, and there were a number of buildings. Some housed some of the locals who were serving in that area, as well as a meeting place and a place for us to eat. And then there were two buildings, one for the women, the traveling teams that would come in, and one for the men. And behind the two, there was a walkway that went between the two buildings, those two buildings where we slept. And back that way towards the back, there were two structures without roofs. They were outhouses. One was an outhouse with a toilet, a porcelain toilet that was laid over a hole. But it was like kind of an enclosing. You had to kind of walk in and snake around a little bit to get in there. So a little bit of privacy, no ceiling. And then right next door was a shower, kind of the same looking thing. You kind of wind your way in and you get the shower. Now, you'd be up early, you'd be traveling in vehicles that are throwing you around, you're getting, like jostled around all day, hot, no AC, going from a couple different tribes, doing a couple hours of training in each of these tribes. You'd come home, it's late, you eat, and then you also haven't really had a chance to take care of business. I don't mean to be crude. And so they would tell, hey, if it's night, there's not a lot of light, illumination at all. So take your flashlight and you walk out to the structure, and let's go to the first one here, and we're going to the toilet, okay? And you sit down, and the instructions were to shine the flashlight between your legs, okay? And they also said, don't look. I'm looking. Okay, so I got to look. So anyway, I sit down. I'm not trying to be crude. Flashlight's between there. I look down, and there's not a whole lot of light coming in. The rays of light start to reach into the hole, and the walls start to crawl and slither down to the bottom. Yeah, that light stayed right where it was. That light impacted that dark, perverse, nasty space. That light had an influence. If I went next door to get a shower, I'd use a flashlight until I got to a certain spot, because this was a little bit wider open. The toilet was a little bit narrower, of a hole above you on the roof, and this was wide open. And you get into the shower, and it's one shower, and they had a barrel a little bit farther away that had fire on it that was boiling up your hot water. You only had a few moments to get a quick hot shower, be done, so you could save it for everybody else. You'd get in there, and at night, I'd get my shower at night, and man, I'm getting a shower, and I had to look up, and it was a beautiful African sky. No light, like pollution, drowning it out. It was just beautiful, just littered with stars. And you didn't really need any more light. So many of them were there, just little pinpricks in the sky. But together, they just had such an impact on my bathing moment there. And just like rays of light, our sound waves impact those around us. As stars in the sky, what we say and how we interact with others impacts in a way that can lift up, it could tear down. We could lose trust, we could lose consistency, almost in many eyes becoming a hypocrite. But we can also win with words of grace. We could win with words of patience, with understanding, with empathy. And Paul continues on, and he says, not only are your words an impact in the world around you, they're an offering to God. It's a sacrifice to God. It's an offering of, here's who I am, God, and I am going to strive. It hurts. It's hard not to complain. It's hard not to argue and want to get my way and win victory. But instead, offering my words up as a sacrifice, an offering to you. In these next few moments, I don't want us to lose this moment. I want us to use this moment. In a moment here, there's going to be a video that'll pop up. It's a song, it's a lyric video. But on top of that, the lights are going to go out, and there's going to be a night sky above you with stars. And I don't want you to lose this moment. I want you to use this moment to either consider, I am one of those stars. God says that's my identity. I get to be a beacon of light. But what I love is the fact that it's actually plural stars. It's not just the person sitting in your seat, it's us. We are a night sky together to a dark world. We get to illuminate with love and truth. The churches in Beaver Creek, the churches in Ohio, in the world, in a dark world, get to be the night sky, get to be the stars that illuminate the darkness. That's who you are. That's who we are. Maybe in this moment, you need to stick out your tongue a little bit and on your tongue. Literally take a little bite on your tongue. Don't do any damage. Because you realize, wow, this thing has power. It rewrites people's brains. It can also lift them up and heal. Maybe you just need to sit in your space, looking at the stars and being like, I got to think of one area in my life, if it's complaining, if it's arguing, that God, I can't do it all. That's okay. It's a long journey in the same direction. Just think of one step. One step up that journey, you're like, God, I got to work on this relationship. I got to work on interacting with my boss and how I do with that, how I do with the irritating coworker. My kids are driving me nuts, and I have a short fuse. Use this time. The lights are going to come out. The video is going to start. You're going to get a night sky. Use this time. Don't lose this time.
Tonight, don't let these moments pass you by. Like a star, we shine bright. We're lighting up the sky. Let's be the light. Be the light. Tonight, be the light. Let's be the light. Tonight, let's be the light. Of the dark, yeah, the light is shine the most. Only in you is my boss. Die for me on my second, did the most. War for my soul, what gotta know. I cannot live my life casually. War for my soul, I gotta glow. I cannot let them be casualties. Don't let these moments pass you by. Like a star, we shine bright. We're lighting up the sky. Let's be the light. Let's be the light. Be the light. Be the
be the light. Let's be the stars in a dark world. Starting and finishing with how our mouths interact with others, how we process our external world or what's going on inside of us, whether it's complaining or arguing. Let's not lose this moment. Let's not let it pass by. Thank you guys for being with us today. As we depart as stars in the night sky, let me encourage you, if you're here for the first time, we would love to meet you. I'd love to meet you. I'll plant myself right here for a while. We also have some gifts for you out there as well, just to say thank you for being here with us. If maybe something brought up today, or you brought something with you today, and you just like, I don't know what to do with this weight, this burden, or whatever you might be bringing with you. We have a very loving team over here to my right that are prayer warriors and would love to lift up those burdens and anxieties or whatever that you're carrying. They would love to walk through with you in that moment of prayer and lifting that up. Thank you again for being here, guys. Can't wait to see you guys next week. Take care. Thank you. Bye.